Welcome to What is Going Om, for new thought from the edge of Om. Each week on Om Time's flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandie Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Om. Here is your host, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello. Back in the early 2000s, a new phrase started creeping into the vocabulary of a few spiritual teachers. I first heard the phrase, the new humans, from the visionary CEO and founder of Blue Star Education and Research, Susie Miller, who's been a frequent guest on this show in the past. It came to Susie from a new population of highly energetically sensitive children, many of whom were labelled with some diagnosis or another. Predictably, many in the mainstream scoffed at the idea that children would refer to themselves as new humans. But fast forward a decade or two, and as the world those kids came into teeters toward self-destruction, those kids are letting us know that the wake-up call is evident. Earth is in trouble. We're in trouble. And there's only one thing that can save us. According to this week's guest, we must choose to stop the programs of self-destruction and harmful operating systems by changing how we play the game of life on Earth. It's time for us to develop our own future human powers. And how we do that is with the help of a number of powerful cosmic keys and transformation practices shared in her award-winning trilogy of books on the future humans. Dr. Anneloes Smitsman, welcome.
Thank you so much, and what an amazing introduction.
Anneloes, you're a futurist, a systems scientist, a keynote speaker, award-winning pioneer, and best-selling author in human development and systems change. You're the founder and CEO of Earthwise Center, initiator and architect of the Earthwise Constitution for a Planetary Civilization, and architect of the Future Humans Games. And you co-wrote the Future Humans Trilogy with renowned scholar, futurist, author, speaker, and pioneering co-founder of the Human Potential Movement, Dr. Jean Houston. Now, having shared a little bit about your professional credentials, before we talk about your award-winning collaboration with Jean Houston, I'd like to start with a lucid dream that you received in 2008 while 5 months pregnant with your first son. So tell us about that dream and who spoke to you, what they said, and why they're coming here.
Yes, indeed. So I was pregnant with my son, Akash, and his name, in fact, means sky and space and universe. And I had, while during the pregnancy with him, a lot of dreams of other timelines, sometimes dreams as if I was really out in the universe, even dreams of seeing mathematical equations between different galaxies. So there was something already about his beautiful soul coming in that was really opening my perspective. Now, on this particular dream, on this very, very lucid dream, I'll tell you exactly how the dream went. So I'm standing in a room full of people, and it felt like a kind of conference. And in the room, there were all kinds of pioneers, leaders. They were all very, very busy discussing all the problems of the world. And they seemed to be only having attention on themselves and how they were perceiving that. And in that same room, in the same conference, to the right of me were these younger generations. They were teenagers in the dream. And they were listening and looking at the adults, discussing all the problems. And they started to raise their hand. And they went, well, we could approach that problem in a whole different way, these teenagers were saying. And what if we did this? And they were raising their hands, and the adults kept talking over them. And then they were coming again. Maybe suggest a different way. And whatever was happening, the adults kept talking, being in their own world, being fully focused, believing that they had to solve the problems their way, completely ignoring these incredible teenagers. And as I was looking at the teenagers, my heart went out to them. And I started to wonder, do these adults even see that there are these amazing young new humans here in the room who have a completely different understanding and experience of what's going on in the world and may well be holding the keys that we've been looking for? And then I noticed it's almost like their energy, their consciousness, their vibration wasn't even picked up on, as if they were invisible. And in the dream, then the dream started to progress through time, and I saw these teenagers shut down one after another, feeling there's no place for me, nobody is interested. What am I doing on this planet? Starting to escape into gaming, and I felt such a sadness, and I thought, this is wrong, this is wrong. And in that moment, in that lucid dream, I made a commitment. I said, I will do for you whatever I can. I will dedicate my life to making sure there's a bridge between the timeline from where you're coming, because I really felt they were coming in from a new timeline, a new future. So I said, whatever I can do to make sure that there is a bridge between this old world and this world from where you're coming, I will do whatever I can so that your gift, your purpose here is honored, and who you are as our next evolutionary step is honored. And so I did. I dedicated my life and been working on building those bridges ever since.
And you said that these souls had never had prior life experience in physical form on Earth before.
That was exactly the very lucid experience in the dream. When I was looking at them, everything for them was new. So they didn't come in with all this baggage. They didn't come in with all of those memories. And this is why they were extremely creative, very, very innovative. And I looked at their minds and their consciousness. It was really, really fluid, interdimensional, fluid, very responsive. And I really had a very strong sense that they were really like new souls. Yeah. And before that dream, I had another dream of Mother Earth showing me these beautiful little lights inside her womb, just like going inside the earth. And I saw all these little lights, and I even made a painting of that later while still pregnant of my first son. And she was showing me, these are the new souls. These are the new souls that will be coming for this new time when we're ready.
And several years later, after many synchronicities, you you started a collaboration with Dr. Jean Houston, which resulted in your book, The Future Humans Trilogy. Tell us how that collaboration came about.
Yes, and first of all, Jean would have loved to be here today. So she sends her love. And right now, she's suffering from laryngitis. She lost her voice. But yes, she spoke to me recently and said, please to send her love. So just know that she's with us here in spirit and in energy, as she so beautifully does. So how it started is a dear friend of mine, who'd also been a student of Jane, introduced us and said, look, Anneloes, you really got to meet Jane. She's an incredible woman, and she speaks the kind of same language as you do. You have so much in common. So the connection was made first in 2018, and we had some incredible conversations also for a leadership quest that we were running, and she was one of our guest speakers for that quest. And then life got very, very busy for her. So, things went on, and then it was about 3 months before we really reconnected. I had a very powerful dream of Jean, and it's like a dream in transition. So in my dream, I saw her and I saw myself, and then it shifted from being physical to energetic. So it's like I saw her mind and my mind. It's like a network of consciousness, and it did this, and it started to connect, and then a far larger field of possibility started to open up. And then I looked through that field of possibility that was the result of our connection into what became possible as these new futures. And I saw this incredible work that we could be doing. So this dream was so vivid and so powerful. So I wrote her. I said, Jean, I had this amazing dream. I really feel we got something to do together. I don't quite know what it is. And I wrote to her again and again. And it ended up in her spam. And at that time, I was still just finishing my PhD dissertation, and had written an article, Attracting Our Future into Being. And somehow she had printed out that article. And then it got lost. It got lost under her carpet, in fact. And then at the beginning of the COVID crisis, this was then in March 2020, her dog started pulling away at a little piece of paper that was coming out from under the carpet. And she pulled it up. She's like, what is this? So then she saw my name, then she remembered. Then she went back into her email to say, who is this woman again who wrote this article? She discovered then my email, and she immediately wrote. She says, look, I read the article. This is incredible. There's so many synchronicities here. We got to work together. And then as from April, we really started to work together. And in that first year of the COVID crisis, we spoke almost every day.
Yeah. So you decided on writing this trilogy, and
yes,
in this series of books, you give away so much information, so many tools, and so many things that we can use, but you did it in the form of an allegory. Why did you choose that format?
Yes. Well, it's a very new format, and it is a shift in paradigm. So this is, of course, what we're coming in is from this future human perspective. And in this future human perspective, what we consider fiction and non-fiction, or imaginal and what we think is reality, is really interwoven. And interestingly enough, if we're looking at what's happening now with this generative AI and the speed up of technology, we're actually right now in that time. But when we started, we were not yet aware of all of those technologies, or that it would take off in the way it did. So the allegory, in a way, of the mixing of science and spirituality, mysticism and even practical entrepreneurship, and also then the storytelling, the fiction and non-fiction, all of that weaving together, I feel that's really a pattern of this time. And that's actually a pattern that these younger generations understand very, very well. So it's written from that consciousness, and therefore also naturally we really felt that allegory was important. It really needed to also be its own story. And Jean and I, have a very common approach to writing, and that is that we really believe that the story, it finds us. So it's not like we go out to craft a story, or we go out to say this has to be the character. Yeah, Jim always says the books have a kind of magic and a life of their own. It finds you. It finds you if you're open to that. So this is what we did. We really opened ourselves to be the stewards for this story, to receive this story. But then also we really felt it was important to kind of weave in layer by layer some really fundamental, profound new insights about the understanding of the nature of reality, the nature of the universe, the nature of consciousness. And then, as you know, Jean's focus is always, she loves practices. So she was always saying that, how do we make this really experiential? And how do we make sure that people can feel this in their bodies? And that when we speak to the reader comes alive in this story. And so that was really our intention. And all of that then, it came through as this allegory.
The books are not really written for the young people, because they already have the vision. They're written for the rest of us, so that we can join them in that vision.
Exactly. And understand their perspectives, and understand their incredible abilities as well, and their skills. And I was fortunate now, my sons have grown up further, so they are now the teenage. It's interesting. I saw them as a teenager in that dream. But now they are the teenagers in real life, right? Because we are so many years later. So I've actually been exploring a lot of these themes also with them, and especially with my youngest son, with Manu, who is the character Olaf in the book, which is he's playing the nephew of the main character Rose. And all the gaming ideas, a lot of that all comes from Manu. So there's also his mind and his creativity that is in there.
So let's talk about book one to begin with. This is The Quest of Rose, the Cosmic Keys of Our Future Becoming, which won the 2022 Silver Nautilus Book Award. And this guides the reader through an experiential transformation journey. and it weaves together real life events and real life people as well.
Exactly.
Ones that are really at the forefront of what's happening now, people like Jude Currivan and others. So tell us a little bit about what we will find in that book.
So the first that you will find is that within every one of us lives this future human potential of the emerging new era. And I think that's really important. You know, a lot of people right now, they're feeling that as a future is only more collapse, more difficulty, more challenges, a world in crisis rather than a world in transformation. So the first thing that you find is that the earth herself and us being part of her, we're going through a very, very deep rite of passage. We're going through a very deep transformation. And so there's a dying and a falling away, hence the story also of the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. This is becoming a recurring pattern in the book, and you see this also on the front cover. So from that perspective of this deep transformation, of the rebirth of self and society, of this new regenerative renaissance as well, we get to connect with that, with our future human potential of this new era, this new cycle of time and consciousness. And if you understand that that potential already lives within you, like an imaginal cell that is waiting to be activated and engaged, when you connect with that, you make space for that within yourself and within your life. It starts to generate ideas, inspiration, visions, courage when you really need it, new ways of perspective, new ways of working also with the challenges of our time, and ways to really develop profound new capacities that are really needed to move through this birthing stage of our collective consciousness.
This book one, it offers 9 cosmic keys and 12 transformational practices. So can you give us a little bit about some of those keys?
Yes. For example, one of my favorite ones is the key of paradox. Yeah? So with the key of paradox, it helps you to really become aware of common duality traps. A lot of people are seeing the world dualized, black or white, this or that, masculine or feminine, right or wrong. Yeah, look at the political tensions in our world. It's all polarized, all put in opposites, very, very dualized perspectives. But what happens in a paradox is that there are two realities that seem as if you can't reconcile them, and yet at a deeper level they're unified, so they feel very paradoxical. And often people don't like to feel paradoxical situations. They say, but how can you be like that and you love me, and you're speaking like that and you say you love me? Yeah. That's an example. Is that so that whenever we feel this paradox, we feel an evolutionary tension, and what we tend to do is fall back into duality. If you love me, you can't be saying that. No, I love you. That's why I want to be helping you understand what I'm feeling. Yeah. So, for example, in close relationships. So, in what the paradox invites us to do is to hold those tensions. So instead of running away and flattening everything and it's this or that or black or white, because in our mind we just want to see it in one way, which means what happens now, we're escaping in one part of ourselves. We're not working with the full brain, the full heart, our whole human potential. We are now creating a pattern, in fact, of domination and suppression in ourselves. One perspective becomes dominant over the other. And evolutionary growth and opportunity is lost in that moment. So when we're working with the key of paradox, the first thing we learn is to say, okay, some situations are paradoxical. My mind may want to flatten that and to create a narrative of duality of right or wrong or this and that. But what happens if I hold that tension? If I hold the tension, I'm not letting it go external. I'm not going to push and project. I'm also not going to take it internal as if there's something wrong with me. Maybe there's a new perspective that can emerge from the two. And as we're holding that tension, we're holding the tension of the two that seem as if they can't be brought together. A new perspective opens up, a larger perspective of a deeper wholeness. And then that very evolutionary tension becomes the energy for our transformation, and it becomes the energy that it's like it pushes us through the birth canal to a higher order of reality. And this is where in the key of paradox also we say that the heart can embrace what the mind sometimes cannot comprehend. So this is when we're really working with the wisdom of the heart rather than trying to get this through the mind to resolve it. So that is, for example, one of the keys. You want me to continue with another one? Or?
Yeah, give us another one.
Yeah, okay. Now, the book begins with the key of conscious choice. And I think that's another one that's really important, the power of conscious choice. So what we're working with, the power of choice here, is that choice making, when you make a choice about your life, or you make a choice about what you're open to, or what you're saying yes or you no to, you can use that choice almost like an activation point as a coordinating consciousness. So every time that you exercise the power of choice, it's like in that greater landscape of consciousness, this greater body of consciousness of universe that we form all part of, you help them to actualize and activate one possibility within all of these infinite possibilities. So choice making is also reality making. And I think if we start to work with the power of our choice in that way, and then conscious choice making, then we get to see that if I make a conscious choice, for example, about how do I want to be treated in my life, what are my standards for my relationship, what am I okay with, how do I choose to respond to this situation? When we do that, it's not only about our own life. Every power of our choice sets in motion a pattern for our world, a pattern for our collective consciousness, and can therefore, in that patterning, become a new possibility space that other people can then resonate with and can support them. So with the power of choice, we have transformative powers for not just ourselves, but also our world and our future.
And that's something few people think about, is that everything they do is significant.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So what happens in book 2?
Yes. So that becomes a real adventure story. And I just want to let everyone know that you can actually start with book 2 instead of book 1 if you feel a bigger resonance with that, because we did include an introduction in book 2 where we quickly summarize what happened in book 1. Because we know that there are many different kinds of humans, and some people like to begin at the end in order to come at the beginning and then come back. So you're free to do that. However, of course, it's recommended that you go book 1 and book 2. So whereas in book 1 we have the keys, in book 2 we have the cosmic architect tools, where book 1 is about activating and actualizing our future human potential. Book 2 is about developing our future human powers. Because in the story now, the future humans, and especially Rose as the main character, sees a woman in her mid-20s. As her future human potential, through her power of choice, activating this new cycle of time and consciousness within herself, as that has happened in book 1, what's happening now is her powers are starting to grow. And as her powers are starting to grow, so is her shadow and is her ego. So she has a lot of lessons to learn about power, about love, and also about how she deals with all the injustices that she feels in her world. And inside her is this power of this dragon is waking up. But now she has to learn a very important life lesson, is how to let the power of the dragon rise within her, which is the alchemy of fire. It's that sacred fire, that incredible clarity, but in such a way that it doesn't get hijacked by the ego or by the shadow. So she has to learn how to develop those powers, those new abilities and capacities, as well as some really old powers that we have as humans. And she has to be able to develop those powers through the wisdom of the higher heart. Because when she learns to direct these powers through the higher heart being so coherent, and the higher heart, as I shared earlier, knows how to work with paradoxical situations and doesn't get caught in that. Yeah? When the powers now go through the wisdom of the heart, then we make sure that we don't become that very dominant that we may be triggered by and what we feel we need to stop. So she goes through, and with the other future humans as well, through a very, very powerful journey of transformation, and of also decoding what are these operating systems that are causing so much harm. How do we say no to violence? Is a very powerful scene in the book where Rose says, this stops now, it's enough, this violence and always this sacrifice, and we got to get out of this. So yeah, she's gone through a profound journey of transformation here, and with the help of these cosmic architect tools, with the help of her grandmother Verdandi, who is like a female Merlin, who is guiding her through that journey, and her friends. And she's in all kinds of dangers. She gets herself in all kinds of troubles and stumbles upon portals. And yeah.
So Verdandi, her grandmother, is a shaman-like character who lives in Iceland. And because the pandemic is still on and travel is forbidden, during the first book, they have a lot of dialogues on the telephone. One of the things she says that I noted was, she says that she studied the rise and fading away of many civilizations and those that have been transformed through something akin to a hybridization. But there is yet to be a civilization that undergoes the kind of death and rebirth process that we're living through right now. Why is this so significant right now?
Well, this was also in the middle of the COVID crisis. So when we were writing this, everything was in lockdown. Yeah? And there were massive deaths that were happening all around. And the way we were working with that is as if the world was being cocooned. So giving people also this perspective that rather than that you're being held back and you're being locked inside your house, what if we are being cocooned? And this cocooning phase forces us to go inward in the energy and allowing to let die what is no longer serving. That is the first perspective. The other perspective around this is that if we're looking right now with technology, that we can be around the world in a conversation around us, yeah, in ways that have never been possible. So we can learn about each other's situations in such a way that it can feel like we're going through this as one great human family. So that is the second perspective of it. We've never been going through collective rite of passage. And this process of death in this way. And the third one is, of course, what's happening with the Earth herself. And so if we're taking into account what's happening with our climate, if we're seeing the huge biodiversity loss, over the last 50 years, we've killed more than 50% of all species here on Earth. I mean, there is so much death that is happening. But what Verdandi is sharing also is that where the death is greatest, there is also a new impulse of life that is happening in that very moment. And if we can capture that, if we can work with that influx of life, where life, because of all that's dying, life will renew itself, life will go through the transformation. That potency also of the influx of imaginal power into our world, as this is happening in this dying and falling away of so many also old layers, old ways. Yeah? If we can work with that and surrender in that process, work with that process, this is where a whole new perspective and capacities open up. But not if we stay stuck at a layer of what's no longer working. And so that just like in the cocoon, you need to let everything that belongs to the caterpillar world, its structures, its ways, its eating till can go no more. Yeah, it's like what we've been consuming our earth. That stops. And when we trust in that process of transformation, metamorphic transformation, then inside us, our butterfly capacities, which are a much lighter creature, will emerge.
We're going to take a short break now, Anneloes. You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and my guest today is futurist, systems scientist, keynote speaker, award-winning pioneer and best-selling author in human development and systems change, Dr. Anneloes Smitsman. And we're talking about her award-winning Future Humans Trilogy, co-authored with Dr. Jean Houston. We'll be back with more from Anneloes after this break.
Om Times TV. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself. Invest in your brand and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
Hello, I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, host of Om Times' flagship radio show, What Is Going On? And as an author, editor and 13 times book judge who's read thousands of books and interviewed hundreds of authors, I'm constantly asked what's really worth reading and what's not. So I created the No BS Spiritual Book Club to help you save time and money by picking the brains of discerning names who have walked this path before you. There's no catch, no fees and no BS, just an ever-growing library of 10 best spiritual book lists from some of your favourite authors and teachers, plus free book excerpts, audios and video interviews with people like Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., David G., Lee Harris, Mark Nepo and more. From well-known classics to hidden gems you've never heard of, it's the only no BS guide to the best spiritual books to enlighten your journey of self-discovery. So why not join the club? Get inspired and save money at the nobsspiritualbookclub.com.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back, Dr. Anneloes Smitsman. There is a point in the book when Rose, who represents us, is struggling, and her grandmother, Vedandi, says to her that much of the dissonance that we are experiencing is the discord of patterns that run contrary to the flow of life. And she advises not to get caught up in this. She says that many are longing for the greater possibilities and yet are not able to bring them forth because depression often manifests from blocked and aborted futures, as well as unhealed disappointments and grief. She actually offers a healing practice for this. Can you share that practice with us?
Yes. I want to speak a bit further to this aborted, and then I'll weave in the practice, because these aborted dreams, I find this so often the case, and especially for women. For a lot of my female friends, I have found that they've come with amazing dreams and amazing visions, and they've had a lot of pushbacks in life. And then many of them have given up on their dreams until much later. And so I think it's really important. So for those of you who are listening, if you feel that way, if you feel like you've had this beautiful dream and you had this vision of this possibility you've reached in your life, and it's like you have a faint memory still of that, but it's like you've given up on that. That energy of that aborted dream may still be there within you and may have created layers also of disappointment, of losing faith in yourself and losing faith in this greater possibilities. So what she's sharing then as well when she's going through that healing is, first of all, we need to know how to work with these pushback situations. So rather than letting us get discouraged and believing there's no place for us, or maybe it was all an illusion or wishful thinking, and this is also modeled because we're saying some of those are our life experiences. Well, the things I've been working on at Earth Eye Center, that first came to me 20 years ago, and it's been quite a journey to stay, true to that. And I've seen many different iterations come and go. So everything that we're sharing here is also based on that life experience. So working with these pushback situations, what you get to do then is ask yourself, for example, was it the right time? So instead of believing that something was wrong with yourself or something was wrong with this dream, working with the wisdom of time. So for this particular dream, for this particular vision or project that you wanted to bring in, check of the readiness of time. So was it the right time? Was it coming in the right way? Was it meant to be coming in the form that we were thinking that it was working with? And then in order to be able to heal and to work with that is reconnect with that like pure essence that you first felt about this dream, about this greater possibility that got you really excited and inspired. And now what you can do is as you connect in with that, it's like you give it back to the great cosmic mother, you give it back to the universe, and you give it back to the great universe woman. Say, okay, for whatever reasons, sometimes I may not even understand why, I really tried to make this and bring this into the world, whether it was not the right time or not the right way or not the right resources or support, whatever happened, or whether I myself aborted into that process because I wasn't willing to work with it all the way as only working at the level of inspiration, whatever the reasons. I want to thank the universe for trusting me with this idea and this inspiration. I'm now going to give this back. I'm going to give this back to this greater wisdom of life, the greater wisdom, bring it back almost like to the cosmic womb. And if it's still mine to bring forth and into this world, then I'm asking the universe now, bring this back to me. Bring it back to me, but now in right timing, in right relationship, in the right way, in right support systems, and show me now what it is within myself where I need to make space so that this can truly manifest, that I'm not just holding it in my mind. I can embody this dream and possibility and allow now for my future human potential, this dream and my future human potential, allowing this new patterning of that possibility to come into the world. And then what you're doing is as you're kind of receiving this dream and this vision again, it's like you're being pregnant again of this greater possibility for women and men. So for men, you can be pregnant too. You can be pregnant of inspiration. What you're doing then is then you're allowing then that beautiful creation that comes with its own purpose, its own wisdom, its own energy, its own patterning. You're allowing that now to take form in space and time. So you're making space for it within yourself and within your life. And then you hold the intention, may this new pattern now flow out into the world, and may the patterns around me become resonant with it. And asking also our earth as a mother, as a loving mother, please support this now, so that there is sufficient resonance and sufficient nutrition. So this way you can really help heal the previous experience, work with the process of creation, manifestation, using your future human potential for being able to do that, which is coming already from this new timeline, this greater perspective and understanding, working with the fertility of life as well. And instead of this energy of the pushback now holding you back or feeling like there's something wrong, you have worked with this now to actually enhance your capacities and your transformation and your understanding. So this is a very beautiful way to work with that.
Every single chapter in the book is usually followed by, a summary, a meditation, an exercise of some kind. Obviously, it's very hard to do those exercises when you're reading them. But I believe you have a course, don't you, where you are taking people through this?
Exactly. So we have two courses, the Catalyst course, which is all online on demand, so people can work with it in their own time. And then the practices are also on separate videos and audio, so people can download that and work with that. So the Catalyst course is for working with book 1. And then we have the Future Humans Quest, which is for working with book 2. And every last Tuesday of the month, I give a class for all of the students and all of the readers. So you can join that one as well. And I always create new practices for every single class, based on the teachings of the future humans, but then also creating these original new practices that are really appropriate for where people are at and the time in which we are. And there's an audiobook version as well. So both books come in audiobook form, which also make it possible to just listen in to the practices instead of having to read. Yes.
Yes. There are certain passages where Rose is having an experience that are deeply moving and very visceral. One in particular that really struck me. We hear a lot from people who are very sensitive and can connect with nature. They can, we hear about people who can feel like part of a tree or a plant or whatever. It's never been my experience. However, Rose has an experience with a flower where it's as if she becomes part of that flower, and she is, as that flower, exuding this energy upwards, and Rose doesn't know why that's happening, but what she's actually doing as the flower is calling to the bee. And then what comes after that is an absolutely beautiful description of the relationship between the bee and the flower, something that had never, ever occurred to me. Have you experienced that?
Yes, I had that dream. So, that was literally, I really was feeling myself inside this world of this flower and hearing the sounds and looking at the lights. Yes, and as they're calling each other forth, an incredible love between the flower and the bee. And in that communication, how this inner world of the flower just started to expand, as I said, with sounds, with new colors. Just incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is very, very beautiful. Very beautiful indeed.
Yes.
And it's, I went for a walk this morning. I live in the country.
Yes.
And as I was walking past the trees and the flowers, that was there. I had a whole new appreciation for them. Yeah.
I'm really glad. And with the trees do that as well. So for a lot of indigenous people, for example, trees are portals.
Yes.
So next time when you are with a tree or you connect with a tree, speak with it. Yeah, connect with it. There are amazing worlds inside plants, trees, flowers.
Yes.
Yes, fascinating.
So there's lots of things that I can point to in the book that I particularly enjoyed and think are very useful, and also, perception shifting, which is always important for me. But what do you feel is the most important thing you want people to get from this trilogy?
There's several. First of all, to understand that they are future humans. All of us are. So we're all future humans in becoming. And that's the greater quest and the greater journey that we're being called to. If you connect in with that, to understanding that everything that's happening in our world right now is really like a huge collective rite of passage. And you start to see yourself now as a future human, but also as a future ancestor. Who am I as a future ancestor of a whole new civilization? And what does it mean to be a cosmic architect? Rose goes through that as well. A cosmic agent of that. What are the powers and the dreams that I'm being trusted with for this time? And how can I reach out to other people around me so that we really speak to that greater capacity that we can really become as these evolutionary beings that we are, to become these future humans world. So to me, that's a really important message. And the other one is also what we share in the book, this profound understanding about the nature of reality itself, so that we live in a fundamentally unified universe. So Rose discovers this cosmic architecture of consciousness, and she discovers that cosmic architecture of consciousness is informational, and so she discovers this whole science about that. And this is when she also has a conversation with Jude Carfin. So when we start to see that we are living, consciousness is not what we have, but who we are, and we're living in a universe of consciousness. Yeah? And at the most fundamental layers of reality, that is unified. it is whole. Well, then all those crazy experiences that we sometimes have in society, where we may feel hurt or not understood, or harmed even, or saying this doesn't make any sense, just know that that's one little speck. That's a very narrow human reduction of an incredible world of consciousness, of a universe that we live in. So then knowing that you are at one with this world of consciousness, of this universe of wholeness, know that you can always also refine your own inner sanctuary there. You can draw in that place with nature also, or to revitalize your humanity, to come back to yourself. So yeah, know what is real.
Yeah, many people, especially those on the spiritual path, believe that what we're aiming for is ascension. But Rose says to her grandmother that the next evolutionary direction is not about ascension, but rather about incarnating and fertilizing our world with cosmic consciousness.
That's it. That's the journey. That's it. That's it. Exactly.
So what will we find in book 3, which isn't published yet?
Yeah, we're in the process of writing that now. Yes, that's about the great game. So where we're introducing the idea of the game in book 2, and they're working with the cosmic compass and the future humans quest. So in book 3, they're going to be really playing out this game with each other, with the future humans teams. And in book 2, they're learning about the archetype of domination, as I was sharing earlier, hence the wisdom of the high heart. But in book 3, they're learning the name of a particular archetype of domination. They're learning the name of Moloch, and how this has been this archetype all through time. And that causes us to sacrifice and to create these massive misalignments between personal and collective interests, short-term and long-term, and whereby we're making decisions, whereby we're undermining really our own future and our world. So in book 3, the future humans are really setting out now to shift the way we play the game of life on planet Earth. They become aware of that archetype. They start to decode the algorithms, working with the algorithms of life to shift the game.
So tell me about your Earthwise Center and the Earthwise Constitution and the game plan for a planetary civilization.
That's it. So everything that you'll see in book 3, what we are also doing in real life. So the compass that we are sharing also in book 1 and book 2, that's called the Cosmic Compass, for helping people navigate through all these different changes. I've created a whole constitution based on that. So the Earthwise Constitution for planetary civilization is based on the wisdom of living systems, also based on the science of living systems. And it helps you then to really connect with your purpose, your core values, the 5 future archetypes, the living systems protocols for understanding which kind of actions, which behaviors help to create a thrivable world and future, and which ones are harmful, and how do we change that. And 16 commitments that are also 16 pledges that we can together take to really becoming these future humans of the emerging new era as future ancestors, steward for thrivability, opt out of systems that harm, opt into systems that heal and connect us, working with the pattern that connects the pattern of life. So the Constitution creates the foundations and the groundwork for that. And then through our game plan, what we are now in the process of is developing a prototype for an open world immersive action game. So that's like a video game that also younger generations will play, but also adults, with real life challenges and quests where people are really going through this whole process and this journey that we have now shared in a way that's fun, in a way that's engaging, using the latest technologies of blockchain and what we call Web3 tools, so that you can even create these new regenerative economies of collective thriving with each other. And as simulations, civilizational simulations, so you can simulate worlds that don't work because they are coded by the wrong algorithms. They are coded always to undermine. and the algorithms of life. And if we are coding our world and our systems economically, politically, socially, educationally, really, creating our world with the wisdom of these living systems that our universe has been evolving for billions of years, then by design, we are on this pathway of a thriving world and future, this greater promise. So this is what we're working on with the game plan for civilizational transformation.
You have a number of things on your website. Tell me about Earth Song.
Yes, that's a beautiful project that we've started several years ago. We're still in the process of that for developing the technology. So the dream and the vision of the Earth Song is to make it possible for all of humanity to join in the making of one great Earth Song for Mother Earth. And based on the understanding that Mother Earth sees the only mother who we all have in common. So if we're looking for something that can unite us across different traditions, religions, all this diversity that we have, then it really is Mother Earth. So she needs us. She needs us to stand in solidarity, and also based on indigenous wisdom, where when you're going through a very difficult time, when you're going through challenging time, the best thing of how to unite is actually to sing together. Because as we sing together, we cohere together. And as we cohere our fields of life, we become resonance with the earth. And then we start to become aware that the earth herself is a great song. Life itself is a great song. So the Earth Song is on the one hand honoring that we are part of a great song, and start to discover also your song. What's your melody? What's your note? What's your resonance pattern within that great song of life? And let us just really work together in singing for Mother Earth, as she is our one and only mother who we all have in common.
There are, so many strands, so many little branches to these projects.
Yes.
Are there some that you get more pleasure out of than others?
Yeah, that's a nice question. For me, and this is the hardest part, because the pleasure often comes last with this one, but it is really to create the operating systems that when you implement that, like with the Constitution, we're applying the Constitution now to new technologies. We are applying the Constitution now with different organizational forms, movement building. So when I see that really the wisdom of living systems becomes the operating systems by which we grow and develop and evolve our lives and our world, when I start to see that that spreads and it takes form and people get that, this gives me great joy, because then I know that future is possible. Because when you make space for life, everything else unfolds.
Anneloes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
I thought I better put the video off.
No.
Because I
I
didn't
will
see
trim
her.
this all out. Here comes Sandie. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, that
Hi.
was me then.
Yes.
I thought I
You,
wasn't
yes.
sure which end it was. Okay, so that was round about
Oh.
55 minutes.
That's right. Maybe you want to repeat the question.
What was the question?
So it was about what gives me most joy from all these. At all the different projects have so many
Okay.
different strands. Which one gives me the most passion? And the
Okay.
last sentence, I was saying, I completed the sentence in a way that you can use that as the completion. So I said, when you make space for life, I mentioned when you're making space for life, when you're putting living wisdoms, the wisdom of living systems as the operating systems, then I know you make space for life.
So that will take us
So
back to about.
Did you finish the question she asked after?
No.
Yes, I finished.
Oh, you did?
I answered. You went, and then I finished the answer.
Great.
But
Okay,
I can just say it again if you want, so that you have two options.
No, that's okay. If we just leave that as it is, and I ask another question,
leave
because,
that there, and then we'll pop you back in and pick it up from there. So there'll be a short time where it's just Anneloes, but then you're back for the next question. All right.
So we've probably got about, I would say, about 4 minutes left.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's about right.
Okay.
All right, I'll get out and then just wait a second or two and pick it up.
So can the public engage with all of these projects, or just some of these projects?
Well, yes, they can. I mean, first of all, for the Earth-Wise Constitution, when you go on our website, everyone can download it for free. It's available in English, Spanish, in the coming weeks also, even in French and in German. And it's being translated in other languages too. So it's freely downloadable. Everyone can work with it. It's open source. It's designed that way so that everyone has a tool also, and a kind of new social contract that we can work to further evolve our lives, but also our businesses, our projects, our movements, our organizations. You can join also our partnership alliance, where we're working together on the basis of the commitment and the vision that is in this constitution for a planetary civilization. Everyone can, of course, join also with our Future Humans classes or the books. There's a lots of free resources also. We have also our Future Humans podcast on the YouTube. So there are a lot of free resources, but also there's a lot of ways in which to engage, to learn, to reach out. So yes, everything that we're doing is collaboratively.
So going back to 2008, when you had that dream and you made that commitment, did you have any idea at that point, any vision for how things were going to proceed? And was what you're doing now part of that vision?
No, I from when I knew I could see myself internationally and globally working. And I remember that being in Mauritius, and I just moved from Australia. I'd lived there for 8 years to Mauritius, and I felt actually very isolated. I was missing both home in the Netherlands, but also my friends in Australia. And I thought, what am I doing here? And I had this dream, this understanding. I could see myself working globally, traveling globally, and I had no idea how to get there. So I had many days where I was kind of almost starting to doubt myself, like, but how? And you know, how am I going to do this? And the resources and make the connections. And here I'm on this small island in the Indian Ocean. I'm more isolated than ever. So how am I going to get there? So yeah, there was a sense of seeing that, but not knowing the how. And then I started just working with that step by step, and trusting every time that life has given me an opportunity, working with it. And it's like the path was made in that way. And that's the beautiful thing. So I've really felt you become a future builder that way, really learn to architect and building that way. Yes. But now also when, as we said in that dream, there were teenagers, right? And now my children are teenagers. To see this coming through, what's changed now, I now know that these future humans and these beautiful children, there is a place for them in the world. There are systems, there are new economies, there are new governance systems, even the new technologies. So I'm so grateful that I received that dream, and grateful to all the people around me also who supported me, and people like Jean, who saw this and who reached out and believed in me. I could never have done this alone. So I'm very blessed in my life.
Yeah. So one last quick question.
Yes.
Deepak Chopra has described the Future Humans Trilogy as prophetic. Would you agree with that? And do you think that humanity has the will and the courage to take these evolutionary next steps?
I agree with him, because when he wrote that that was sort of endorsement for the second book. Many of the things that Rose was talking about of Vedandi actually happened after that in ways that we didn't even realize how indeed prophetic it was. There's something magical about this second book, and he picked up on that straight away. And yes, I do believe that maybe not everyone, but a very big portion of people around the world are stepping into this next step, are feeling this, are saying yes to this. So I have a deep faith and trust in the heart of our humanity and who we are truly are and who we are called to become. And like yourself, look at you. I mean, everything that you've been doing and all these incredible conversations and shows. I mean, you're living this, the living example of this. Yes.
Dr. Anneloes Smitsman, thank you for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you. And the books, I heartily recommend them.
Thank you so much.
So the first 2 volumes of the Future Humans Trilogy by Dr. Anneloes Smitsman and Dr. Jean Houston are available as paperbacks, ebooks, and audiobooks. And for more information about Dr. Smitsman's books, courses, coaching events, workshops, and more, visit her website at Earthwise Center, spelled the English way, CENTRE.org. earthwisecenter.org. That's it for this week. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. I'll be back with another edition of What is Going On at the same time next week. Until then, it's goodbye from me, and thank you again to Dr. Anneloes Smitsman.